Alright, in this video I want to explore MS-2 because it is actually a new synthesizer that kind of fascinates me, and that's something special. Like, I don't want to be a hater or anything, but you know, lately Twin 3 was released and everyone got really excited about it, and when I saw it I just thought to myself, I don't know, what is the special thing about this synthesizer? Why should I spend money on another synthesizer now? So I watched some videos about it, like probably all of you did, and I saw that the oscillators have standard waveforms only, and I'm personally someone who almost exclusively uses the standard waveforms in Vital and in Serum, so I always keep asking myself, why do I even use a wavetable synthesizer when I only use the standard waveforms in most cases anyway? So I always feel inclined to, is that the right word? I want to check out synthesizers that only support the basic waveforms, but then have a nice twist on it. So I was asking myself, what is the twist on only using basic waveforms here? You can see there is some additional parameter next to it. I think it was PWM for some of the waves, and for some others it is unison or so. So pretty basic stuff that you could also do in Serum and Vital. Then there is a modulation system which also exists in Serum and Vital, but with a better workflow in my opinion. Just my opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of FabFilter's modulation system, but you have seen in my other video that I released some hours ago that I actually enjoy using this modulation system as well. It's just not my favorite way of visualizing a modulation system. The filter section that is in the center of the plugin makes it pretty clear that the developers think that using complex filters is the main twist on this plugin. They do have a point. The filters are much of what shapes a wave, so it makes sense to just put that into the center of the synthesizer and just see where that goes. But it was kind of not enough to convince me that I need it now, because I also often use standard filter shapes when I'm making synthesizer patches. Sorry for being such a normie, but I'm just searching for a twist that makes me come out of my comfort zone in a different way. Something that I don't know yet. And it also doesn't help that the filters don't let me change the sequence. You know, everything in this plugin seems kinda standard except for the filter, and except that it's looking very cool. And maybe, okay, there is an arpeggiator, but honestly, Synth 1 also has an arpeggiator and Bitwig has an arpeggiator, so I don't know. What I do know though is that this thing has a Vectorscope, and that's pretty exciting. I will tell you why soon. Okay, so sound is running. So the Vectorscope is showing you the stereo spread of the sound, and I will also add an instance of Ozone Imager so that you have an alternative visualization for the stereo spread. So when there is no stereo spread, then this is just a line and this is just a diagonal line. And then there are lots of different things that you can do, and some of them affect the stereo field, and then you can tweak the sound while looking at the way it shapes the stereo field, and that's where things get very exciting in my opinion. This thing also just has the basic waveforms: sine wave, saw wave, I guess it's ramp, so also kind of a saw wave, triangle wave, pulse width, which is similar to square, white noise, and pink noise. Pink noise is not often in a plugin, but you know, pretty much the standard stuff. So that's already just to my liking. As I said, I want to explore synthesizers that really get everything that you can get out of the standard waveforms, but then they should have a twist. And one of the twists that this plugin offers is a very complex system of FM modulation and phase modulation. And already, even though I'm going into this only with sine curves, it doesn't sound like sine curves anymore. Let's just add an oscilloscope to just get a real idea of what the sound is like. So let's give it some settings that make more sense, like this kind of setting. So now we can always check out what the curve is like while playing around with the sound. By the way, sorry that I cannot resize the interface. That's just not a feature in this plugin. Maybe it will be in some update, I don't know. I gotta say, this plugin was made with Synthedit, and Synthedit is just not as versatile as Juice, so this is probably already the best GUI that I ever saw from a Synthedit plugin, and I shouldn't expect much more from it. So I already made something that would be a pretty cool bass line. And I didn't even dive into all the panning options yet. I want to go to the higher pitches again, because I have seen some videos of this plugin by the developer where it sounded a bit like a bell. I want to find out how to let it sound like a bell. One thing that I learned from his videos is that you can click on these things in order to switch between phase modulation and FM. Oh, and I can see when it switched to phase modulation, it also does something in the stereo field. So that's very interesting. Let's start from scratch. Strange. I only have to put one of these to FM and it will not do the stereo stuff anymore. So let's try to find a good setting without FM. Or did I do something different? Something else wrong? Okay, this seems to be sort of a panning thing. Maybe now I can actually start talking about what I find special about a synthesizer like this. Sometimes when I'm mixing music and I'm thinking about the stereo field, I don't know about you, but me, sometimes I'm just so obtuse that I just think about more stereo field or less stereo field. And that's not very sophisticated. And sometimes when I feel a little bit more sophisticated, I feel like, okay, what do I use in order to add some stereo spread now? Will I add the left-right equalizer, or will I add a phaser or a flanger or a chorus, or just the stereo-wise button of this thing? And I mean, it's not wrong to use an approach like that, but it will also always result in the same type of stereo width. You know, you're always using the same type of processes to do that. Now imagine there is a synthesizer that encourages you to think more about the stereo spread, to actually work with the shape of the stereo spread while designing the sound, so that when the sound is ready designed, you don't actually have to add more stereo effects anymore, because it already has its place in the stereo field. If there was a synthesizer like that, then there is the potential for tracks that just have more depth in them, and a more interesting depth especially. So basically something that helps creating and crafting better worlds of music. And I think this might be the synthesizer that I'm talking about, because it has this visualizer. And you know, it's not that you couldn't just do this and then use Vital the same way. But the fact that it's just right in the plugin and doesn't force me to load up another plugin, I don't know, it just feels a little more encouraging. While editing this video, I noticed that I forgot to actually explain or to actually conclude this way of thought. So I will just do that now and then put that there so that it looks like, anyway, what I'm trying to say is, when I get a new synthesizer, then I want it to solve a novel problem, a problem that wasn't there yet. And that's what has been missing in lots of synthesizers that have been released lately. They have not solved a specific problem. And this synthesizer solves a specific problem, which is that you want to have more interesting and more finely shaped stereo fields in your music. So it's actually not a gimmick. I mean, it could be argued that a plugin like Twin 3 also solves a specific problem. In that case, it would be the specific problem that most synthesizers don't have a very interesting spectral shape, and it would be solved by having a complex filter as the filter that modulates the output from the oscillators, you know. But that's just not such an interesting thing when most subtractive processes in synthesizers already do something like that. Like when you're adding a key tracked flanger to a sound, then it gets crazy. I mean, that's basically solving the same problem, or even just by selecting a complex wavetable that already comes with a distinct spectral shape. And then it makes me question if I really need an alternative approach for that. Again, not hating, I love most FabFilter plugins, but it's not just that plugin, you know, I'm talking about most of the synthesizers that have been released lately. So it has to be a problem that really changes a lot about the music in order to encourage me that I need a new synthesizer. And that's why I give my shout out to MS-2. Now that's interesting, it only gets spread out when I'm holding the notes very long. Oh, it's faster when I'm on higher notes. Is this synthesizer oversampled? It sounds pretty good on the high notes. Or maybe not. I don't know. Let's go back. Nice. So now with dialing in some decay and release, we actually get much closer to something that could resemble a bell-shaped sound. But now that I'm kind of more getting into it, it would make sense to have some automatic note generation going on here so that I don't have to play it all the time anymore. And also so that it just sounds better. So we have 3 notes going on now, and now we need some MIDI effects. I don't want to go too much into how that worked because it's probably not made very well anyway, but it's good enough to just play around with the synthesizer now. So the first thing I want to explore is the decay and release parameters, and I actually want to have a macro for modulating them, because my idea is to just have one control to rule them all. Because I'm working on a bell sound, I do want the decay and the release to be the same anyway. And now I will start playing around with the parameters some more. Okay, that's not exactly a bell shape, but you know, I'm just exploring the synthesizer and I like what's going on right now. What I find exciting about this synthesizer is that a lot of these controls are very cryptically labeled. Sometimes I would wish there to be a tooltip component so that I can actually read something about the things that I'm doing. But generally, I really like the idea to just turn a knob and not knowing where it's going, because that's the sensation that I had long ago when I learned Synth 1 by Ichiro Toda. And now, using Synth 1, you know, it didn't exactly become boring or something like that, but certainly more predictable. And that's the same for most other synthesizers. So I do want to feel like I'm exploring sound again. And that's definitely one way to do it, by just cryptically labeling stuff. And now I will turn the other oscillators knobs as well and just try to find out what kind of timbres that gives me. Is it timbre or timbre? I don't know. Without the noisy stuff in the high end, this would sound so much like a tin drum or hand drum, or how these things are called, I don't know. You know, these spiritual thingies that can only play one scale at a time. I love them, but I always forget the name. Okay, this seems to be a section where you can map some sort of LFO to something. I don't quite get how that works yet, because, you know, modulating something without drag and drop features and stuff like that is kind of hard for someone who is as spoiled as me when it comes to modulation systems, not gonna lie. But okay, I have enough stuff to play around with in the synthesizer that I do understand a little bit, so let's just go on. Okay, so I hope you understand what I'm doing here. I just mapped the decay and the release of this filter also to my macro, so that everything has the same decay and release, no matter if it's amplitude or filter. And this knob seems to be for how much the envelope should affect the filter, the amount. It's a bit of a shame that you can't go backwards to create an opposite curve, or maybe I'm just not getting it yet. What is this? I don't know what this is. Is that maybe the macro modulator? Yeah, so there's a macro modulator just like in my plugins, which is pretty cool. There should be more plugins with macro modulators. And every time you see this thing that has this look and feel, then it's for the macro modulator. It's also here. I decided to explore that a little bit later because I do have my own macro system here in Bitwig, so I don't need to have a more cryptic one. And yeah, I don't need macros in general now. I can just tweak sounds. I gotta say, the sound of the filter does not fascinate me in particular. It's kind of a clean filter. Maybe it will make sense to add more filter types to this plugin. Maybe the band reject filter is pretty cool because it's kind of subtle. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't know what this does. Sends the LFO to destination 4, but what is destination 4? Something with pitch, maybe the master pitch of all oscillators together or something like that. It's kind of unclear. You can only listen to it and then figure it out. Good enough for just having fun. Let's go. Here's the effect section. Let's try the effects. Okay, what was that? It just made stuff louder. It's distortion, okay. Okay, I don't know how to use the distortion section. I do understand that LT has something to do with making it quieter, but turning up SP and amount does not really make it distort. All I try to do is driving it into distortion and then gain compensating it down. But I don't know if that's possible. Let's just ignore that and instead go to the delay. Okay, I like this setting because it's kind of like a slapback delay but with way too much feedback, so to give it its own room. I don't in particular like how the time parameter feels because it's really hard to dial in these really low settings in precision. It goes to very high settings quickly, and yeah, when you try to use low values, then you just need more precision down there. Gladly, this thing has sensitive drag on shift. So let's see if it has implemented mouse wheel. By the way, it doesn't. So you cannot tweak parameters with mouse wheel at all, but at least sensitive drag exists on drags and it's on shift, which is cool. Nice, you can set an offset to the time on the left and the right channel, but then you have to be even more careful with this parameter to the left, because then the delay time is just higher. That could really need some improvement, but it is actually a cool sounding delay. And now let's go on to the reverb. That's a cool reverb. The size is the most important parameter here because it makes it sound bigger and a bit longer and more prominent in general. Then I have turned down the width so that the stereo components of the initial sound are the ones that dominate the sound and not from the reverb, because as I said in the beginning, if I wanted to have a generic stereo field, then I would use generic stereo effects like reverbs. But the strength of this plugin, in my opinion, is that it can create cool stereo effects without effects like this. So I turned that down a lot, but not completely. And then much damping, a bit of high pass filter for the smoother sound. I don't know exactly what DR is here. Yeah, a good reverb. Now let's tweak some more of these sounds, because I think I'm pretty close to finding a sound that I really like. Nice, 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 nice. So now I have the sound. Let's turn off the effects. Wait, what? Why did it only go to the right channel sometimes? My patch is not finished yet. As long as there are still bugs like that. Or I don't know if it's a bug from the plugin or a bug of my crafting. How can I trigger it? Oh, there was it. Why? Okay, I don't know. It didn't happen while I was playing back notes from my pseudo randomizer. So I think maybe it's not a big deal when I'm actually writing notes, then it might not appear at all. But what I do know is that I now have made a patch that is kind of cool. So this is the preset thing. File, save preset. Okay. My first preset. Boom. And now I can load another instance of this synthesizer and load the preset. Yay! I loaded the preset. Okay, nice. Yeah. MS-2. I was waiting for a synthesizer that can fascinate me for a long time, and waiting for it really paid off. There have been so many synthesizers that have been released in the meantime, and always I was sitting here like, again, a wavetable synthesizer, a granular synthesizer, a boring synthesizer that was only created to make some quick money, this. And I was sitting here like, I have YouTube channel. How am I going to make content when all the synthesizers that are released suck ass? Gladly, this has stopped now with MS-2. MS-2 is cool. It was fun to explore MS-2 in this video, and I will keep on exploring it in the future.